Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome back to Upgrades Explained, a sub-series of my Characters Explained series. And in today's video, we'll be taking a look at Steam Blaster, as well as its upsides and downsides, its potential upgrade combinations, and more to ultimately decide if it's worth buying or not. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. So before we can even begin comparing this upgrade with normal Scientist, we need to first discuss what this upgrade even is. So to put it simply, this upgrade removes Scientist's Goo Blaster, and it replaces it with the Steam Blaster, a close-ranged weapon that specializes in crowd control. And to get more specific with its stats, the initial shot from the blaster itself deals 12 damage, and damage values of 12 and 10 linger for about 2 seconds or so, before dealing 10 and 6 damage right before disappearing. To put into perspective how short the weapon's range is, it's a little longer than Scientist's normal warp, so there's a visual representation of what to expect. Other stats for this weapon include the ammo count, which is 4, and the RPM, which is a very sluggish 58. That's a little less than 1 shot per second. So this weapon is ideally not the fastest, but quite frankly, that doesn't really matter. The weapon is incredibly powerful, especially against tank characters like Oak and frail characters like Nightcap. So that's the basic rundown of Steam Blaster. It's pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. But is it more viable than Scientist's normal Goo Blaster? Well, let's take a look at what both do. If you guys watched my Scientist video, then this information won't be very shocking to you. But Goo Blaster is surprisingly really good if it's used right. It can handle multiple ranges really well, but especially in close range combat. And that's a problem for Steam Blaster, as that's its entire gimmick. Another thing that Goo Blaster has over Steam Blaster just happens to be a little upgrade called Dolphin Blasting. In case you guys don't know what this upgrade is, let's just say that this upgrade is capable of making Goo Blaster very quick, and it's a really good upgrade. Unfortunately, Steam Blaster doesn't have access to this, so that's another pretty bad downside. But just because Goo Blaster has some things over Steam Blaster doesn't mean that Steam is a direct downgrade. One thing that I didn't really talk about yet is how good Steam Blaster is at close range combat. If it's used right, this thing can wipe out a fully stacked Oak with 5 shots to the dome. Yeah, that's something most characters could only dream of. And not to mention that this upgrade also takes advantage of Scientist's really good mobility, as Warp can easily make this character hard to vanquish, especially if it's used right. So I think it's safe to say that this upgrade is situational, but very good at the situations it can handle. And we haven't even discussed the upgrade combinations yet, so let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm sure you know this by now, and in case you didn't, legendary upgrades are very expensive in the upgrade department. They cost 5 upgrade points to use, and that's pretty pricey. But luckily for Scientist, he has a ton of upgrades that cost 2 points or less, so this should be a pretty fun section to cover. In order for me to cover all possible opportunities for this upgrade, I'm going to show you every single upgrade that you can use with Steam Blaster. Yeah, that's a lot of upgrades, but I'm not going to be covering every single one, simply because some of these explain themselves, or they just don't add much value to the Steam Blaster experience. A couple examples of this are Rough Patch and Leveling Up. You can obviously disagree with what I marked off, but the remaining upgrades are what I consider to be the best choices for Steam Blaster, and I'll explain why for all of them. Starting with Revive Reward, this one is just kind of here because you might find yourself running into vanquished teammates, and helping them back up helps you more. But honestly, when compared to the next upgrade, this one's pretty situational. Next up is Evolution, which is actually a pretty good one. It basically gives you 20 overhealth for 20 seconds after spawning, and I could see this one being a lot more useful than the other one. However, its one big drawback is that it's really only useful in small maps, so turf is practically off of the table. Still good though. Next is Power Wash, which isn't exactly great, but I'd say it's certainly an option with this character. If you want to play healer but also use Steam Blaster, this is pretty much your best bet. Not perfect, but you're using Steam Blaster with it, so you could always have it worse, I suppose. Second to last, we have Materialize, which gives you ammo every time you use Warp, but don't expect any crazy amount. It's only 2 ammo per Warp. Again, this one is situational, but it's definitely more useful when you're dealing with high HP characters or people sticking together in a group. And finally, we have Wormhole, which makes Warp's travel distance further than it was before. The one major downside for this one is that you'll have to get used to the new Warp, but once you do, it makes Steam Blaster a lot more viable. So overall, these upgrades all provide something to Steam Blaster and Scientist as a whole. But if you ask me, the three that end up being the best are Wormhole, Evolution, and Materialize. Simply because if you're running Steam Blaster, then let's face it, you're probably not healing or reviving often. And with all of that information, I think it's safe to say that we can come to a conclusion now. Is Steam Blaster worth buying? Well, I would say it depends. See, this upgrade can be very useful in a lot of situations, such as dealing with a bumming team. However, none of those situations can counter a plant who's just sitting across the map, which is why I believe this upgrade's a great pick for people who already play Scientist pretty offensively. But it may not be the best pick for people who either like to shoot at further ranges, or people who just don't really care about playing offense with Scientist in general. And I think with that conclusion, this video is now done. Thank you so much to everybody who stuck around until the end, I really appreciate it. Let me know how you guys feel about this upgrade in the comment section down below. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. And if you're new around here and you like what you see, then drop a like, maybe even subscribe, and I'll be seeing you guys in my next video. Peace.